This is Live Life Love. Hello, and welcome to the Live Life Love podcast. If this is your first time on the podcast, the Live Life Love podcast is all about living a life you love and living your life full of love. And so today we're going to be talking about the subtle art of minding your own business. And I know that title sounds like a little aggressive, but really this is all about living your life full of love and being able to share and be a healthy version of yourself and becoming a very kind person. So the first thing I'm going to be talking about is love versus indifference versus hate. You might have heard before that hate is not the opposite of love, but rather indifference is. And I think this is true for romantic love, but it also can be true for familiar love or anything really where love is very active and full. Now, I'm going to say that love is also not the opposite of hate, rather indifference is. So both love and hate are a form of passion, and that is why indifference is the opposite of this. And this is all just connecting back to, minding your own business. So you don't need to, of course, love everything, but you also cannot, hate it. You don't have to hate it if you don't love it. There's, something else, different levels in there, such as indifference. Often I think also, love has a ton of different definitions. I think the Greek had 3 different words for love, but in English we only have one. So we use it kind of broadly and universally. So here, when I say love, I'm talking about the love that we might feel for a stranger, like that selfless love. It is quiet and peaceful, and it's almost like indifference. It's that lack of passion, and that is minding your own business. That is what I mean when I'm saying minding your own business, is that indifference love. And the thing that is kind of opposite of that indifference love, that is when the hate turns into prejudice against those who are different. That's where we see sexism, racism, really any ism is hate rooted away from a quiet peace and love and almost indifference that we can feel towards strangers and people we don't know. And having indifference or not caring and minding your own business about somebody else's ways in which they're different from you, or the parts of them that you don't really understand but aren't really harming you in any way, that is a form of love. And the opposite of that love, when you're too focused on other people's business and differences, you start to fall into maybe you don't even realize it, but your thoughts can become prejudiced and in places that I don't think anybody really wants to be. And of course, you don't need to feel any kind of passionate love for any stranger here. That's what's great about, I guess, minding your own business, or the indifference here, is that you can just love people quietly and by leaving them alone. And so, you cannot love everybody ultimately. There are a lot of people out there. So trying to love all of them would be exhausting, but choosing to love them in that quiet, peaceful way that is very much like indifference is a way to show kindness towards others and make it actually achievable. And of course, indifference as the opposite of hate, as I've been referring to it, is not that indifference that's the opposite of love. So mind your own business in hate, but not in love. So what that means is if you see someone struggling, or, someone you love is going through a tough time, those are moments to not mind your business. Or, if you have some kind of calling to help in some way to other people, and That might mean getting involved in their life to help them grow in like a non-controlling way. That is not what I mean by mind your own business. So we live in a very polarized place, and that's where this indifference can start to be almost a superpower. I mean, walking down the street, probably no one is going to stop you to yell at you. Hopefully nobody does that, and if they do, I mean, sometimes that escalates to the point of someone like going to prison or the cops being called or something like that. But as far as like aggression and hate, it's rampant on social media due to the anonymous, like you can be anonymous on the internet and on social media. So it allows people to kind of forget their humanity and choose violence, choose being aggressive and not, choosing love. And this is where that indifference, like towards these people who have really irritated you on the internet, is being like indifferent to their opinion. And that's what I truly mean, like indifferent, not even like even that quiet love of just being like, you don't care about what that person is saying. Because I promise you, whoever you tell off on the internet is not going to care what you say or change, unfortunately. And you're just going to get yourself like worked up in a fight that doesn't really matter in the long run. And it's not going to change anyone's mind because unfortunately, the only people who can change others are those people themselves. And honestly, sometimes choosing indifference instead of anger and minding your business in those times of like anger and like, so choosing not to insult people, especially when you're faced with people with differing views, that can be choosing love. And of course, this does not apply to situations in which someone is a danger to themselves or someone else. Like, those are times when you absolutely like should speak up, remove yourself, fight back, of course. And I also don't mean like you can still speak up for what you believe in, but if you're met with opposition, approach that person with indifference rather than anger or hate. And you can even still respond to them, but with a level of indifference that shows strength and maturity rather than like dropping down to their level of like insults or anything like that. And the most important thing to ask yourself that really comes down to minding your own business is asking yourself, is this about me? Is this harming me? If it's not about you or if it's not harming you, then you really don't need to react or engage. If it's not something that like you're an expert on or like you're actively maybe defending someone else, then you can just leave it be and you'll have so much more peace in your life. Also, if there is something inherent about another person that bothers you, so something that they can't even like really change like quickly, it could even be like part of their personality, it's better just to mind your own business. But if it's more like an inherent quality that they really can't at all change that bothers you, there's no reason to point that out about them or anything like that. That is a great time to just mind your own business. And if you have a very like strong point of view that you feel like you need to express it calmly or just keep quiet. Just because everybody puts a lot of their life out on the internet and it seems like they're sharing or inviting you into their business doesn't mean you actually need to get involved in that. And just make sure that kindness is put first in the way that you treat others. And, if you find yourself still having like opinions and thoughts about someone else's inherent qualities, make sure you keep those thoughts to yourself and not spread them to other people, because that can cause all kinds of other issues. And always, it can be so easy to even just assume things are about you. But oftentimes, most things are not about you when it comes to other people. So if you feel like something is about you, maybe take a step back and be like, oh, is this actually about me? And make sure you're not making assumptions about that person based on their behavior or anything like that. And try your best to always assume positive intent. You might realize that people are a lot more focused on their self than you originally thought. And I kind of hinted at this earlier, but minding your business also means moving away from gossip. And this is like one of my biggest vices for sure, is talking about other people. And, when you're around other people and people are talking about other people, it's easy to like jump in. But minding your own business means not sharing others' business, because you're going to possibly get yourself involved in drama that you don't want to be involved in. And if those people don't want you sharing those things, you should really not share them. And when you're putting that negative energy out there of being negative towards other people, it just tends to not work out well for you. And so it can be hard to move away from gossip. I know this for sure, but it is like a great practice of like actually minding your own business. And of course, you can talk about other people if it's in a way that you think they would be okay with hearing. Like, you would say that if they were in the room too. And you have to be 100% certain that you are positive. Like, whatever you're sharing about someone else, whether it's like something that they told you, are you 100% sure that is the truth before you share it, because you don't want to be responsible for spreading a rumor that is not true. And also, like, if you are in situations and you find yourself in situations often where there is like gossip, or other people's are being talked about, or other people are talking negatively about people behind their back, double check with the individuals to see if anything that you hear is true. Don't blindly believe what you hear. And you can always walk away from situations if you're uncomfortable. Like, you can shut down gossip and be like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't want to talk about that right now. I'm not comfortable talking about that person. Or just generally like redirect the conversation to something else. And like I mentioned earlier, minding your business is an art. It is not a rule. And so make sure you're always minding your business in like the opposite of hate and not love. So that can be kind of hard to identify always. But, like talking about how great someone is behind their back is not gossip. And that is not like minding your own business in the opposite of hate. That is more in the opposite of love. And minding other people's business out of care is often really great, but remember, they're not obligated to share things with you. So just don't get frustrated if they put boundaries in place when you're trying to help them, and respect those boundaries. Also, like, sharing your own business in close personal relationships is also great. That's how you like connect with other people. You want to make people feel safe and celebrate when they like share parts of their life with you. And that is not what when people share parts of their life with you in close personal relationships, that's not like minding your own business. Don't say like, oh, mind your own business to people who really love and care about you. And you can still have those boundaries if you need them, but be careful if you find that you're setting them too much. And of course, do not ignore people in their time of need. Like, be there for them. Those are not times to mind your own business. Finally, I'm going to be talking about minding like your own business. So taking care of yourself. You don't need all your energy. You don't want all your energy to be all up in other people's business. You want to focus that on yourself. Like, if you're pointing out what you don't like about other people, like the traits that they can change even, what if you instead focuses that energy on yourself and pointing out things that you might, want to change about yourself? And not in like you don't want self-hate here, but acknowledging and recognizing the places that you want to improve and getting your own business in order and making sure you're investing and taking the time to really work on yourself. And when you're truly working on yourself and running your own business, really deep, going deep in this metaphor, you're not going to have all that time to be, worried about other people's business. So just make sure you're taking care of yourself. Instead of trying to consult other businesses that didn't ask for a consultant, focus on building up your own business so that eventually you can invest in other businesses down the line. And that is the whole idea of minding your own business. And when you start to mind your own business, there's so much peace there. You'll feel more on top of your stuff, less worried about others. You're not being bogged down by all this gossip, and eventually you can share the wealth of everything that you've learned from taking care of yourself. So that is all the content I have for today. So go out there and master the art of minding your own business. So if you are new to my podcast, I have an activity every week that I encourage people to do. This week's activity is to try to remove yourself from a situation in which gossip is occurring, or you can choose to recognize a judgment you're making on someone based on one of their inherent qualities. And when you notice those things, write them down so that you kind of acknowledge that you did the activity for this week. And I'd love to hear from you. So if you are listening on Apple Podcasts, feel free to leave a review. And if you are listening on YouTube, feel free to subscribe and leave a comment. Thank you so much for listening to the Live, Life, Love podcast. As always, please share this episode with your friends and family. Follow the podcast on Instagram at Live, Life, Love Pod, or visit the website livelifelovepodcast.com. You can find past episodes wherever you like to listen, and new episodes come out every Tuesday. Have a great day.